a Draghi report, the Draghi report on competitiveness. When you read it, he emphasizes Europe has to get back on the track of competitiveness. I say get back because he has a pretty realistic view, I think, and we have to move, and we should not be naive, or we say in German sometimes blue-eyed, so naive on everything. We have to see what is happening around the world. So when I look at the report, when I look at the mission letters, competitiveness of industry as an important point of our prosperity is important. If our industry is not competitive, prosperity will go down. Yeah, so we have to take that into account, and you will see when the new commission now is in office, we hope next week, then we will see that a lot of actions are related to that. We cannot talk about it right now, but you may have seen in the press what was discussed in hearings. So what I would really emphasize to you is, don't do your work business as usual. What you have in your contracts, yes, true, but adapt to the world situation, adapt what is happening. Yeah, so that we are not anymore, in particular, not on CSAs, on support actions. You have a contract and then you execute. We have to watch what is around. Yeah, so I think that's extremely important to look and not just think, I have a contract, I have to do this, this, this. If it doesn't make sense anymore, if you think you have to change because the world is changing, you have to change your contract. So please take that into account, in particular in these CSAs, because you, as the support actions, you help us to move the others. Yeah, so very important to see where we are going. So competitiveness and standardization are mentioned again and again in Draghi's report. When you look at the mission letters of our Vice President Virkkunen, or at Séjourné's letter, or at the letters of the ones who are responsible for verticals, like you mentioned, software-defined vehicle, the initiative I mean me and my colleagues, we started together. You see that they are there for the Commissioner for Mobility. You see these also for energy. So you see this competitiveness standardization going all the way through. So take into account the geopolitical situation as well when you discuss. So geopolitical for me means there are geopolitical tensions. There's a tendency towards divergence. One, and now it's diverging into two. We see on software-defined vehicle as well that we have some strong American companies that go into that direction, Google, Android Auto, and Qualcomm. And we see on the other side Huawei for the Chinese, controlled from the top. So we are either smashed in the middle or we find our way. So I think it's important that we find our way. And so we see these geopolitical and competitive challenges underscoring the need for a unified approach to IoT standardization in Europe. So get your act together. Yeah, that's important. That's important for us. Don't be naive. And by fostering collaboration and sharing, we can better navigate these challenges effectively and ensure that European interests are safeguarded. So that's important, and that you should look at. A common angle by European actors is needed on international level, because you're stronger if you work together. So it's important that you align a bit, and maybe also not everybody can be present in every committee. So get your forces together, represent others with you to be stronger. And shaping the future of industry and technology users worldwide is important, with a special focus also obviously on the like-minded countries. That's a bit the wording that is often used, but it's the lines get a bit blurred when you see what was announced in the United States, for example. So we have to be looking at our own situation. Now, that's the geopolitical side. Now, let me just say something on where we are going on, where we believe we are going on Cloud-Edge-IoT. We see a convergence. We have, you may have seen last year, we did this communication on 3C, communication, computing, collaboration. So we saw fixed and mobile converge. Now we see computing and communication and collaboration converge, and that also means industry. We see the hyperscalers and the telcos going into a direction where this comes together. Yeah. So and the IoT is there as well, and that's my point now. The important one is this again is converging with the application infrastructure. When you see computing, when you see decentralized intelligence, that's not only done on the cloud, yeah, or on the edge nodes like in a factory, the big ones, but that's done in the leaves of the IoT. So we have to see that comes together, and then ownership is also different because the application is usually owned by the application owner, and that brings big companies. I saw Siemens here, I saw some of the big integrators in the sectors, yeah, and in each individual sector that are important because they integrate and because some of the application owners also own that infrastructure. So we merge things of different ownerships into an integrated, let's say, infrastructure, which I would say at the end has to be intelligent, has to be immersive, has to be sustainable, has to be autonomous, supporting autonomous, and has to be virtual in a way. So we are looking at this convergence to come. So standardization should help us to support distributed intelligence and link to artificial intelligence. I mean, everybody who wants funding nowadays has to ride on the AI wave. Yeah? And we see AI, and in particular also generative AI, is changing a lot. So it's in some cases revolutionary what is happening there, and we need to provide the resources to do that. And I think the buzzword there is decentralized intelligence. We have it since some years, but I think it has got a new facet now. We need system-level optimization. System-level optimization means we may not send everything because communication may eat energy, may be expensive, we may do more locally, or the other way around. It's a question of cost, performance, obviously. When you want to process data quickly, you need to get it into the pipes, yeah, and so you have to see energy, the different loads. You also don't want to use an HPC system for simple computation because it's just too expensive, and sustainability. So what I believe on this is we need a we see the platform economy, in particular on the consumer platforms, and I've said this many times before. I think we also need in the industry to look at platforms. So the way we work together, we cannot all do it individually. So the only way to work together is through platforms, through open platforms, and platforms that are not driven by one actor but are community-based. So by several of the actors getting together. And platform for me means more than a talking platform. Often platform is a club to talk. No, what I'm talking about is the whole ecosystem that's built on that platform, a kind of a technology platform, but not in the sense of the European technology platforms of the past. So ecosystem, it means standards, it means testing, and what comes on top, it means a multi-sided marketplace with different actors to see how they work together and with business models that make them work together. So that's a bit where I see we are going in the next years. And standards are very important for that. Standards in IoT and edge computing are crucial for interoperability, for security, for scalability. So I think that that's extremely important for us. They enable devices and systems from different manufacturers. And that's why I say platform building must be across manufacturer to ensure interoperability, to communicate seamlessly, to provide a reliable and consistent user and operator experience. So we have to get together on that and see how our standards do that. They facilitate the integration of new technologies, AI, yeah, that's coming, and allow for expansion and evolution of this IoT ecosystem. So we all have to adhere to established standards, but also look at new ones that we need to bring developers, manufacturers, and all together towards a more efficient, secure, and innovative IoT, edge computing, including the application, the leaves of the IoT. Many people, when I ask them, even in my house, in the commission, what do you understand by edge computing? For them, edge computing is a server that's not with the hyperscalers, but it's a server that is standing in a factory or that is standing somewhere centralized, but still a big server. Most of them don't have in their mindset that edge computing also includes, I would call it far edge, or the leaves of the IoT where computing is. So important is now that we work together, that we collaborate on that, and then we get going. Yeah, don't talk forever. You see the world in digital is moving very fast. We would have never expected Gen AI when we did this AI Act. You may remember that we were delayed with the AI Act a bit. That was because Gen AI brought in new dimensions, which we had to take into account. Yeah, so that's important. So effectiveness of any standard technology innovation is fundamentally linked to synergetic efforts between you. So that standardization always means collective commitment and cooperation, and different measures of success that we need, which is linked to the adoption. So it's important. You can have a standard and nobody uses it. So you have to be careful that people adopt the standards, that you go in the right direction, that you seamlessly integrate into the existing ecosystem, because if you go alone, they wouldn't use it. Yeah, so we need this culture of collaboration. I think you do a very good step in that direction with this workshop. So to come to the conclusion, we organize this together with the two CSA, CEI-Sphere and INSTAR, and I can only tell you, look at where the world is going and adapt to that. And the workshop, we will look at gaps in standardization across different domains and the relevant industry stakeholder. It's important we have the industry stakeholders here on board. We address the critical questions around international collaboration. So clear, we have to work together in Europe, but we have to look at what happens elsewhere. We have to be very careful that there is reciprocity when it comes to working with others, yeah, and that we are not in the middle of all the effort. We should foster cross-fertilisation between ongoing projects. That's a message that I give all the time. Projects have to work together. Each Commission project developing its own platform doesn't make sense, because they will just compete with each other. Competition is elsewhere. So work together, see the competition elsewhere, and build your common platforms across these projects. And there are organizations there who build these platforms, just to mention one who is a lot in projects, not giving any preference now, but I just mentioned Eclipse because they are included in many of our projects. And facilitate, we want to facilitate here also the brainstorming on where we have to go with standardization. So we want to promote a common angle on standardization here towards the international level, and we go across many of the standards I could mention, ISO, SAREF, SC41, but I don't want to go into it. I'm not a particular standardization expert, so I don't want to get on ice here, going too much into detail. So I would like to thank the two CSAs here who are organizing this. So thank you very much for doing that together with us. And I would be very keen to see a kind of a short blog that you can develop together with my colleagues here to say what was the outcome that we can promote to the outside world. And I know my colleagues are already well aware of that. I've said that. So thank you very much, and I wish you a successful event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Max. And I think, as you mentioned, we don't need to be the experts in standards because they're inside the room and they can tell us. If I can then hand over to Svet, who's going to provide more context on the evolving role of the Cloud-Edge-IoT. And then I will hand over to the colleagues from the international side.
Do you have the slides or?
Sarah? Yes.
So, okay, good morning. Yeah, so good morning. Svet Mikhailov, I was presented already from the team of Max. And I'm the one responsible for standards within the team of Max and within the area of Internet of Things. and before that in smart cities. And as such, I've been looking in how the standards are addressed, and I've been also talking to the different party stakeholders like standards organizations, etc. And my presentation will be, as already mentioned when we were presented, kind of elaborating on what Max said by giving some examples, some concrete actions that we have taken, somehow how we have addressed it during the years, etc. So this was already mentioned by Max. We have been moving through the years. The architecture of the Internet of Things network have been evolving. So we, in Horizon 2020, we had many projects or other initiatives addressing IoT, the classical IoT, which was hub and spoke. So it was going from a kind of centralized point, a platform that was mentioned, but a centralized platform, going to directly to the things, to the objects, and talking to them, which was simplistic in a way, but we developed certain set of standards together with the standards organization, etc., that were working. We had APIs, they could talk to applications, etc. But technology evolves, and there were reasons for this, of course. So we moved towards the edge in order to move the computing closer to the endpoints. Many reasons. Some of them, of course, we needed way faster reaction. If you have two cars and they have to react within microseconds. If another things, there is privacy and so on. There is sustainability that was mentioned and so on. So we had to move some computing towards the edge. At the same time, of course, there was the additional complexity of having to federate this computing. And this, of course, forces the standards to evolve. Now, if the computing is happening over there, and we want to connect the application there, the API has to move there as well. So the platform that Max was talking about is not any longer this solid thing somewhere in one point or a couple of redundant points, but it's all over the place. And it should act as one platform. Like, for example, if you look at the MetaOS projects, this is what they're trying to do, what they were doing, is spreading these platforms all over the place, but it still behaves as one platform. It knows where to connect and where to do the computing and so on in a very kind of harmonized way. As Max said, of course, what is edge? It's relative. It goes all the way. Here, like 3 levels or something, but there are way more. We can split it. There is a picture with way more levels. And this had an impact on standards, and that's why we had the standards, whatever, NGSIO, RF, and so on, but then they had to evolve. So in Horizon Europe now, we have projects like the MetaOS Forum, etc., that are dealing with this new complexity. And of course, they have to adapt the standards that are existing. They have to introduce new ones, analyze, and so on. And then, of course, at the edge, there is increased autonomy. So the edge nodes, the devices, the small data centers that Max also mentioned, etc., they behave autonomously, or of course as swarms, so several of them autonomously and not connecting or having any communication with the central point. Apart from this development, there were other developments, and again, they were mostly mentioned by Max, but just to repeat some of them and their impact and so on, that are impacting and evolving the standards, forcing us to evolve the standards. The new technologies Max mentioned, AI, Gen AI, digital twin, 5G is being used in our current projects, but 6Gs will be coming soon to influence. And these are just some examples of what is there and upcoming as technologies. Then, of course, it's not the typical, in the past, the typical ICT network, telecom network, or IT network, where we had only IT people and telecom people, but of course, the complexity of the verticals. So there are many more stakeholders, diversified. And not only we have to create all this on a vertical level within the sectors, but now it's cross-sector. So different sectors that had nothing to do with each other, now we have to speak to each other, and we have to make sure that they can exchange information. So it's a very vast and difficult to harmonize exercise. Then Max mentioned, yeah, I mean, we need autonomy. And the concrete and visible example is the hyperscales, because in a more cloud environment, well, we had kind of lost it to the big guys of Amazon's, Google's, etc., Microsoft. But we are hoping, and this is what we'll be working on now in Horizon Europe, is to bring some of this back to Europe with the edge, this move to the edge and other developments to bring it back, to have at least part of this pie here in Europe. But of course, this is another complexity for the standards. Then we shouldn't forget, of course, security, sustainability, trust, privacy. On one side, of course, moving it to the edge, this assures the trust and the privacy better in some cases. You don't have to send it somewhere, maybe even to the US or somewhere, the information. Now it stays local. But of course, this increases some other problematics. And sustainability, as Max mentioned, you can route or you can distribute you can do the computing, the sending of data and so on in such a way in order to maximize the sustainability. But of course, it has to be balanced with the others, privacy, trust, security, and so on. And it's not something that we're doing now or thinking about only now. I mean, if you look also in Horizon 2020, some of the projects that we had, pilots that we had in IoT, already were doing this. Partially with something towards the edge, but it was mostly about the routing. They were doing it in such a way in order to make sure that it's private, trustful enough, at the same time sustainable. So a balance among all these things. Then there are a number of European initiatives that are influencing also the development of standards and Internet of Things. So for example, the data spaces. So on one side, of course, we distribute these platforms all over the place and they multiply. I mean, they're more and more upcoming. Each organization, etc., has one. But then how do we make them work together on the European level? Of course, there comes the data spaces. What are the rules and the kind of central discovery marketplace system that will allow this collaboration and exchange information between these platforms? Then within AI, we have different initiatives, the AI factories. This is kind of the HPC of AI. So we're going to have a central point with resources and not necessarily only computing resources, but also human resources, etc. That will be offering capacity. And this is, of course, kind of again in competition with the hyperscalers to our European stakeholders. Apply AI is initiative. How do we apply AI in the sectors, in the verticals, and so on? The 3C was mentioned by Max, so connected collaborative computing networks. And there you see that they're coming like connecting, okay, this is the traditional, say, 5G, 6G, whatever, this kind of networks, fixed, mobile. But then we have collaborative because it's exactly this kind of swarm behavior and so on, and computing networks, so that connected with all this computing capacity. Then we have legislation that is also influencing. So sometimes we have to change the standards in order to make them compliant to the legislation, and there are a number of this. I'm not going to go through them, but yeah, the AI Act was mentioned by Max. There is Cybersecurity Act when we talk about security. There is the Data Act for the access to data. And then for all the big players and so, there's Data Governance Act, Data Services Act, Digital Market Acts, and so on. Sometimes are there, within the geopolitical, Max mentioned some aspects of it, but sometimes different regions have different interests and they change. So we need to adapt and also change our involvement or evolve it, etc. Like, for example, if you look, just a small example, in one M2M, some of our partners have kind of withdrawn to some extent. So this, of course, influences the impact of this organization. So we have to adapt and also include ourselves in the work of other organizations to make sure that we are covered on the international scale. And it was mentioned the minimum interoperability mechanisms, which was this kind of term we initially developed for the smart cities area. It was within the unit of Internet of Things that this was done, but for the smart cities. And then, of course, this is evolving now towards energy and other areas as well. And of course, it's expanding in scope. So what, of course, we always have to do, we've been doing it, we'll continue doing it, is to define gaps. Each time we have a new system or evolve, define gaps, use and improving existing standards, and create standards only if none is available. So we don't want to proliferate them to have 20 and new and new and new. Try to use what is good enough, and if needed to be just adapted to the new technology, etc. So we do so. If, of course, it doesn't fit the purpose, then we take a new one. And of course, we need to take care of our values and etc. requirements, but we have to try to be as much aligned into international standards as possible without jeopardizing our geopolitical interests, etc. And then Yeah, I was looking because we did a survey of our Edge projects and the international organizations that they were involved in, so the MetaOS and Swarm projects and so on, and some other clusters. So they were working like with the European standards organizations like ETSI, Science and the Lake, with international ones, ISO, IC, for example, JTC1, SC41, ITUT, HG20, and so on, W3C, IEEE, OMA, IETF, TMF. Then the international initiatives like 1M, 2M, or 3GPP, these kind of things. Then of course, they're working with AUTI, GSMA, and GAIX, some other international organizations, European international. Then they were all using, and we were asking it in the course anyway, so they were coming back with this, our projects, and still the one working with implementing everything in open source. The idea, of course, was the collaboration taking up and what Max was saying, developing something common and then everybody using it, developing it. And the organizations, again, from our survey, et cetera, that they were using, of course, Eclipse Foundation, Eclipse Research Labs, but also all the others like GitHub, GitLab, and many of the others that not all of them you're familiar with, but this is what their replies were, where they put it. Of course, there is the problematic once it's there, very fine, everybody can access it. What happens with it after the projects and so on? And very often, of course, in the vast majority of the cases, nothing. Okay. And then we need to further, there's a need to further increase collaboration among the SDOs and other stakeholders, and to speed up the standardization process to make it more agile because it's sometimes not adapted to fast evolving ICT area. Just to remind you again, although you're familiar, that the way we organize the commission for taking up the standards, there is the rolling plan for ICT standardization, where we list with all the other stakeholders within the multi-stakeholder platform, with many of you are participating there. We list the action points, where we are going, etc. There are chapters on IoT, edge computing, and so on, smart grids. And then it goes in the annual union work program, apart from harmonized standards, but also there are action grants where we can fund some of the initiatives mentioned in the rolling plan, agreed in the rolling plan. And we have done this for SAREF extensions, the European norm digital twins for SAREF. And then there is one now that is already evaluated and should start, is for the enabling the standardized interoperability and access to data in IoT edge and swarm computing environment. So this will be also funded under this. Yeah, just to say that another instrument, of course, is the projects, where we fund the development. When they develop the solution, they use standards, they contribute standards organizations, and so on. We cover all the areas that are important. I'll finish now, yeah, you see the things. I'm not going to go through this, but this is another instrument that we have because I'm running out of time. There are other instruments, still studies and procurement, and of course, other stakeholders groups such as AUTI. And then we have other initiatives with which we support, and I think this was the last slide, but like, say, the European Code of Conduct for Smart Appliances, again, we are behind the standards. And yeah, this Max mentioned that in the mission letter for the new commissioner, in the Draghi report, etc., we're talking about deploying this kind of IoT high-speed networks and taking care of standardization and so on. And of course, we are appearing everywhere. I was in JTC 41. I'm going to ITUT in January, and yeah, and other events like ETSI IoT Week and so on and so on. So we are appearing the commission in all these events, and of course, I'm saying some of this, but if you look at Carlos and Emilio, they are going way further than this and all this international organization. They'll probably say more about this. And I think this is the last slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And I think you picked up on quite a few of this shift to the cloud edge paradigm is creating that demand for standards, either from the market side or purely from the technological side, and ensuring that we're able to realize the opportunities, federated systems that we're developing. And then, of course, the regulation which sits around it that ensures that we have the reach of it. And I think particularly as Antonio and other people are exploring this how do we standardize the ever-evolving cloud edge environment, which I think Joey is also part of leading on an international level. If I can now maybe invite Carlos Lopez Rodriguez, who is joining us from the Unit for Policy Outreach and International Affairs, but his role is as Policy Officer in Standards and
Okay, sorry. I was saying that I will not provide all the answers, of course, but having here some good discussions, I hope. And yeah, already my colleagues Max and Svet mentioned some of the points that I'm going to touch upon now, focusing more on international standards and also our digital partnerships. And sorry that I didn't prepare slides, but hopefully that will be okay. So as they were presenting me before, I'm a policy officer in DG Connect, working with Emilio at coordination of ICT standardization. So not really experts in anything, but having our foot everywhere, basically. And I also happen to be the policy officer of one of the projects that is organizing this event, INSTAR. So thank you for all the efforts for organizing this very interesting event. So first, international standards. We have already discussed their importance. I want to remind that international standards have many advantages. They offer global recognition, enable interoperability, lower barriers to trade with around the world with our different partners. They lower the prices of products and services and prevent the supply chain disruptions among many others as well. They also enable for innovation, etc. And as Svet just pointed out, in the digital sphere, standards are not developed only at European level. So they are developed internationally, and not only in the international SDOs that are recognized by our regulation, ISO, IC, and ITU, but also in non-recognized SDOs like IEEE, WTF, 3C, IETF, etc., and also global partnerships like 3GPP or 1N2M in the case of IoT. So standards were always a technical matter, but in the recent years, as Tanya mentioned, we are growing in a world that is more and more complex. Standardization has gained a lot of political interest, and mainly in my view, due to two main factors. And the first one is the competitiveness angle. Again, citing the Draghi report, the mission letters of our Commissioner, Executive Vice President Virkkunen, Executive Vice President Sejourné, competitiveness is a very important aspect for European industry, and standardization is very important to preserve and to achieve the competitiveness, and also to maintain our technological sovereignty and not be dependent on others for technology solutions. The second aspect is our values, our shared values. We often see in the international standardization arena other players that are promoting technical solutions that sometimes we spot that are really not compatible with our EU values or with our policies and regulations. And we are talking here about, for instance, privacy, data protection, or non-discrimination. You can think of a AI algorithm that is not allows for bias, right? When they have the data set, you have to ensure that these things are written down in standards. And also Emilio and other colleagues are recently have promoted some side event in the ITU that tackles the interplay between human rights and standardization, ICT standardization, which is really important. So these two aspects, I think, make that standardization has become more geopolitical than ever. If you look at other big players in this arena, like US, China, of course, the European Union, we all have adopted our standardization strategies recently. And more or less, they all go in the same direction to try to be more influential at international level and try to put our technologies or our innovations into these international standards. So going to the standardization strategy, one of the pillars indeed is international standardization, right? And for that, the strategy provides, I would say, three main avenues to go forward. One is a more strategic and more close cooperation between the EU and the member states in international standardization bodies, not only in ISO, IC, ITU, but also, for example, 3GPP or IETF for development of internet standards. Second, I think is the most relevant for today's event, is to strengthen the cooperation with what we call like-minded partners, and Tanya and Max were mentioning to this concept before. So we have to let's say, try to find our common ground, especially in our values and interests and so on, to try to put together some let's say, joint proposals or some aligned proposals in the international standardization arena. And the third one that is also quite important, we shouldn't cooperate only with our like-minded partners. We shall also cooperate and promote international cooperation and standardization to facilitate the adoption of European and international standards everywhere in the world, not only with our, let's say, with our friends or with our like-minded partners. So coming back to the point of cooperation with like-minded partners, not only for standardization, but in general for all digital, we have the so-called digital partnerships. And these digital partnerships are guided by the 4 pillars of our digital compass, which is to promote skills, infrastructure, the transformation of businesses, and public services. We have the European Union has signed partnerships with 4 countries at this moment, with Japan, Republic of Korea, guests are here, with Singapore, and with Canada. And we also have similar instruments, and we call Trade and Technology Council with the US and with India. And hopefully this will increase the number of digital partnerships, of TTCs that we will have in the future, because I think they are very good instruments. They foster safe, fair, inclusive, and equal digital spaces, and they aim to create also standards, shared standards that can be used globally. So bringing these 2, let's say, topics, standardization, digital partnerships, a bit together, I'm going to take over from what Svet was saying, a bit some activities that we are doing in the Commission in these 2 areas. So, for instance, the MSP. The MSP, you saw before, all the plethora of different SDOs that are active in the ICT domain, not only on IoT, but also on AI, on internet, connectivity, cloud, etc., etc. So the MSP is an expert group of the Commission that consists of member states, representative from industry, SMEs, research and innovation community, very important also to bring all these innovations into standardization, open source, and also we have there in this unique group, I think, 14 different European and international standard development organizations, recognized and non-recognized. So we believe that the MSP is a great instrument and a great forum to provide advice to the Commission on ICT standardization, on policies, on standardization requests, on where the technology is advancing, etc., etc. The MSP, together with the Commission services, we developed the rolling plan for ICT standardization. And this is a document that we are publishing on a yearly basis. And with basically, we list all the, let's say, all the known policy areas where ICT standardization can be used to support them, right? And I can tell you, because I'm very involved on this, that it's a very, very useful document, I think. And the development process is always very transparent, and we always ask input for all the different stakeholders, Commission services, etc., etc. So the consolidated document that you see every year in the internet is really, really a huge effort between many, many stakeholders, right? And we have 40 chapters for covering different technology areas, IoT, cloud and edge, but also how to digitalize European industry, intelligent transport systems, AI, etc., etc. And also we have 3 fundamental chapters, which are data, cybersecurity, and privacy. Another initiative is the EU-funded actions that we have, and these are two good examples. CEI-Sphere, more focus on the IoT domain, standardization, of course, and INSTAR is focusing on the interplay between international standards and our digital partnerships. We have other actions also supporting international standardization, like Standard ICT, which gives financial support to European experts to participate in international standardization, or Indico Global, which is more focusing on the international cooperation with other regions of the world, like Africa, Latin America, or Southeast Asia. So I'm going to wrap up again saying that INSTAR is a very important action. It aims to shape international standards in key emerging technologies together with like-minded partners. And the role is to implement, on one side, implement some actions related to standardization of digital partnerships, but also to advise the Commission on potential areas of cooperation, right? We don't want this to be a top-down exercise with the Commission and the partner country said we have to cooperate on this, but we also want to listen to the community, to the industry, to the stakeholders to see where we can also have further cooperation. So I thank INSTAR and CEI-Sphere for organizing this workshop and also for giving me the opportunity to speak in front of so many renowned experts. And thank you very much, and looking forward for the discussions in the first panel. Thank you.
Thank you, Carlos. And I think that just picking up on some of the things that both you and Svet outlined, so the fact that, yes, collaboration and working with like-minded international partners is obviously at the core to agree on what needs to go into those joint standardization efforts. But I think also not to forget the fact that these standards need to be taken up, they need to be adopted in countries with whom we may not have so much in common. So that road to adoption is a very, very important piece of hopefully the discussions also that we'll have today. So for this next session, I'd like to welcome Dr. Seyoung Lee from the Telecommunications Technology Association, who will be joining us online. So hopefully we can have him join us on the screen. And also Emilio Davila Gonzalez, a colleague of Carlos who we've just held. So Emilio, would you like to join me up here on the stage? And our session is an international view on key actions on standards for Cloud-Edge-IoT. We were due to have also Andrea Gulacci, who's the Director of Policy and External Affairs from Sensenelec. But unfortunately, as I think all of you know, today seemed to be the magic day for standards, and there are multiple events. And I know that some of you will have to leave us shortly to join some of those events, and we'll hopefully get people also joining us who were at those events today earlier. So do we have Dr. Lee on screen?
Yes, so this is Seyoung Lee. Can you hear me?
Okay, so while we, no, it's not connected. Okay, well, perhaps we can. So while we,
I can hear you.
While we get Dr. Lee on screen, perhaps Emilio, it's always a pleasure to be on a panel with you. And I don't know whether this is going to be a panel or more of a fireside chat, but either way, I'm sure that everyone will derive great value from the conversation with you. There you go. Okay, and can you please let me know when Dr. Lee joins so that I can also address questions to him? Thank you very much. So let me start with something a little bit topical. If tariffs are the potholes in the road to international trade, yes, it works. Could we argue that standards are the signpost to shared end destinations?
Say it again, please.
Yeah. So if we look at the road to trade, okay, and we look at tariffs as perhaps being a little bit of a barrier to our end destination, can we see standards as something that kind of signposts us the way that we need to go?
Yeah, thank you. And let me say that it's a pleasure for me to be with you today. Although it's a problem with the lights.
Do you want to move over here?
Yeah, if it's possible.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tanya. And thanks for the question. No, it's really an important question. I feel like a monologist there the club in this panel, but okay. Absolutely. I mean, and this is an important question because in some occasions, standards have been considered as a technical barrier to trade. But if you make the standards in the right way, and I think the examples we have seen with all the different standard development organizations, where you have the cooperation and open, transparent way in accordance with the WTO principles of so different experts, and this is what we are trying to do here, to foster the participation experts in international cooperation, in international standardization, and cooperate with other experts from other countries, then you have exactly what you have mentioned, the possibility of interact in different markets to scale up and being able to operate, because you have the glues, the building blocks for having interoperable solutions and having the ability of the different devices, services, talking one to another. And this is what really you need if you really want to have this avenue where everybody circulates, providing services across the different countries. And this is why also in Europe, and you saw the introduction of Max Lenke and well,
Dr. Lee's joined us.
yeah, thank you. The introduction, why standards are so important for Europe. In Europe, we have 27 member states, plus, of course, all the different countries we are cooperating with. For the digital single market, we need these standards. Without interoperability, which is provided by the standards, we will not be able to operate. So definitively, we need the standards, and this is the way to promote trade, provided that they are doing in a right way. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know, we had Dr. Lee with us briefly, and I'm not sure if has he disappeared again? Oh, okay, Dr. Lee, welcome. And apologies, there seem to be some difficulties in the connection. Hopefully you've been able to hear some of the introduction.
Can you hear me? I think there are some microphone problem. So can you hear me right now?
We can hear you perfectly, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So
Welcome.
this is Lee. I've been working for ETRI in Korea, Electronic Telecommunication Research Institute. And since 2011, I joined the JTC1 SA38, which is a cloud computing and distributed platform to develop the cloud standard. I'm the convener of the working group 3, is in charge of the cloud computing fundamentals. So I'm very happy to be here. So if I have a chance, I'd like to introduce our activity from GTC1 SA38 for cloud standard regarding the edge computing. Thank you.
Thank you. Please do go ahead. We were just starting the session precisely talking about the importance.
So, I think it would be better to introduce my slide, if you allow me. Can I share my screen?
You can certainly try to share your screen.
Can I share my screen? So it would be better to share the screen.
Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Okay. Can you see?
We can see it. Yes, thank you.
Okay, this is a short introduction for our activity, edge computing in JTC1, actually SA38 perspective. Okay, so this is just the introduction why we needed to develop the standard for edge computing. As usual, you know, this is a very fundamental issue to make sure the interoperability and the scalability and the security and the efficient cost reduction and the data privacy and the innovation and ecosystem growth. So I think many other SDOs try to develop the standard for edge computing in many different aspects. Okay, so I'd like to focus on the cloud computing aspect. Okay. So before going to the details, so this is the some log of the SA38 in JTC1. So the main vision is a cloud computing and distributed platform. So we are developing the lots of standard to cover the not only this cloud computing and the distributed platforms. So I don't want to go to details. So just for your information about the JTC1 SA38, so mission and principle. So we'd like to develop the standard in the collaborative and timely manner to meet the organization need for rapid model changing on cloud and the distributed platform as well. Okay, then this is the some history of the our standard from 2012. So we were started to develop the some fundamental standard regarding the vocabulary and reference architecture. There was a first international standard. At that time, we worked with the ITT, so we have one standard for vocabulary and reference architecture. And then the JTC or SC38 started to develop the many other related standard, the SLA and the interoperability and the portability and policy guidance and the metering and billing. And edge computing, the 2020, we were developing the edge computing landscape, the standard, and also we are covering the cloud audit and the multi-cloud and platform as a service recently, and the interoperability and the portability has been updated. And also very recently, we were started to develop the edge networking standard in SC38. Okay. Then this is our view, okay, on edge computing. So sort of the extension of the cloud computing, emphasizing the interaction between the cloud and edge systems and architecture and the security requirements. And also we are focusing on the development of the global standard to make sure the interoperability, versatility across the industry. So at the moment, we are now have two standards from SC38 perspective. First one is 23188 edge computing landscape, and the 19274 which is a new one, networking in cloud computing edge computing. Of course, in JTC1, SC41 also developing the related to the standard regarding the IoT related to edge computing, maybe. And then this is the standard information from SC38. We have two standards, 23188, and then the 19274 is an ongoing project at the moment. And from SC41, this is a typo, SC41, TR30164 is a IoT edge computing standard developed. Okay, so let me briefly introduce the each standard. I'm not going to the details, but with regard to the edge computing landscape, this is just the very comprehensive overview of the edge computing within the context of cloud computing. So key topic is, as you can see, and the concept and the architecture and the technology components and the networking and data application as well. And this is the scope of this document. So, but as you can see, we just provide the landscape, including the concept and some vocabulary. This is the very beginning standard for the edge computing from cloud perspective. This is the some architectural foundation of the edge computing. So we differentiated the device tier and the edge tier and the central tier. So we provide some relationship among the different tiers. So this is another view of the edge computing and cloud computing. So we needed to specify how the edge computing is located among the cloud environment. Okay. Okay. Next one is a new project for the networking aspect, networking in cloud computing and edge computing. So this is the we try to define the networking principle technology that connected cloud and edge computing system. So the purpose of this document is to guide the cloud and the edge system designers in creating efficient and interoperable and secure networks. this is a covering area, the core concept and the cloud edge relationship and the networking model and the reference architecture and the representative technology. So now we are under development, so not finished yet. There are lots of issues to be resolved. The one issue is, the SE38 is not networking technology stuff. So even though we are talking about the networking issue, that should be within the cloud and some upper layer perspective we needed to develop. So this is the some differences between the cloud computing and edge computing in terms of the networking aspect. You can see the many other different elements, data transmission and the latency and the scalability. So we can differentiate it between the cloud computing and edge computing. And this is some requirements for edge networking aspect. So resource sharing should be different. Communication and data and security and the application and service provisioning. Okay, so business of continuity. So we identified the many other the requirements in terms of the edge networking aspect. This is an, sort of the networking model. So we just differentiated the many different cases: cloud to cloud, cloud to edge, edge to edge, something like that. So based on that, we are developing some scenario how to interwork between the different entities, cloud and edge. Okay. Okay, this is a final one. We understand, we recognize the many SDO is now developing the edge computing standard from JTC1 perspective, based on the cloud computing and distributed platform, as I explained before. The ETSI specialized in telecom-centric edge computing, as you know well. The MEC is the one example. 3GPP also developed a technical standard to support edge computing in 5G network as well. And NIST, IETF, and IEEE also, they are making providing some specification for different aspects like security and privacy, and the protocol level for IETF, IEEE is technical implementation for and interoperability. The open source area, like Linux Foundation, is also there are lots of activity to support edge computing. Okay. So this is some issue we needed to discuss about today. What is the main consideration for future standard on edge computing? So we needed to consider the unified reference architecture. Many different architecture was provided by different SDOs. That's why we needed to have a global standard harmonization to make some unified the standard. And also, we also think about the compliance and the certification issue regarding the edge computing, and then the edge specific protocol, how we implement based on the standard to realize the edge computing solutions. And also we needed to think about the quality of service and the SLA definition regarding the edge computing environment. ST38 already developed the SLA standard in cloud computing, but in some sense, we needed to extend the SLA specification to support edge environment as well.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. If I could just perhaps stop you there so that we can bring
Yep.
Emilio back into the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That was very helpful, actually. There was a lot of technical detail there. And hopefully we can share the slides also with participants so that we can take up perhaps some of those items that you discussed there. So I'd like to bring you, Emilio, back into the conversation. I know that you were noting quite a few things that Dr. Lee had on his presentation. But given the rapid evolution of cloud-to-edge IoT technologies, and I think that we can bring in AI into that as well now, from a policy perspective, how do different regions and standards organizations align efforts to avoid that fragmentation? And I think from Dr. Lee's presentation, there was one specific thing that I thought he spoke about replacement. So the taxonomies need to be replaced, they need to be updated. So how do you take that into account from a policy perspective?
Yeah, thank you, Tanya, and let me congratulate Dr. Lee for the very good presentation, which gives an overall picture of what's going on. And I take some of your message saying harmonization and alignment, and you have seen all the different standardization organizations that are working on this area. And GTC1 possibly is the center part where most standards are done, but Dr. Lee has explained, and possibly there are more because OASIS is also working with the Tosca orchestrations, for instance, architecture, and there are other ones. ITU, they have some parts on signaling for cloud. So it's really important what you have said. We need some cooperation there. This is one of the reasons, by the way, why in Europe also we created the multi-stakeholder platform on ICT standardization that brings together many of these standard development organizations, and where we encourage everybody to try to talk and cooperate rather than the overlapping activities, because standardization at the end of the day, top of it is based on expert contributions. And I know you are very busy traveling around the world, already working for 1, 2, but imagine that you have to work for the same topic in so many different standardization organizations. And also, if we have too many competing standards, I'm not saying that you should go here or there, but if you have too many working on the same issue, you may risk fragmentation, and this is not what we want. So from the European side, when you're asking about the policy, so you have seen, and Carlos was explaining about the rolling plan on ICT standardization. There you have a small landscape analysis of what's going on. And again, what we are proposing is all these requirements for the standards that they should be somehow aligned, and we are fostering the cooperation between the different organizations, and this is why also we are funding projects like INSTAR or Indico Global to promote the cooperation with the different regions. And part of our digital partnership or our TTCs that Carlos was explaining, normally they have always a working stream on standardization cooperation. So we would like really to work with like-minded countries and also with other countries in order to foster the global interoperability standards, because at the end of the day, digital applications are not constrained into the boundaries of one country or one region, but if we want really the market to scale up, you need global standards.
Thank you. And I think that Max also referred to convergence this morning. And I think that Dr. Lee also had a slide where he was talking about different standards, not in edge, in cloud, but also there would be networking standards coming into those considerations too. Now, if I can bring this down to kind of like real world, we're talking about multi-domain, multi-vendor environments. And interoperability, again, this was touched upon in some of the initial presentations. Interoperability is absolutely crucial for competitiveness and opening that environment where companies can come in and offer new products and services. So what are some of the current gaps that we're seeing in this cloud-to-edge market? If I could ask you, Dr. Lee.
Thank you. To support the multi-vendor the solution regarding the edge computing, so we also that one of the important activity is not only the standard but also the open source activity. So this is why open source the standard organization need to collaborate with the standard open source community. So in terms of JTC1 SC38, we are very much into actively working with the open source community to support the many different the solutions. So I think that this is the good way to achieve the interoperability for the multi-vendor solution for edge computing. So I think we needed to think about what is the benefit to use the open source from the standard organization. So, but in some sense, it is a little bit difficult to harmonize with open source activity from a standard body because of the patent policy is different, and the life cycle to maintain the code and the standard document is a little bit different animal. So we needed to harmonize those activities to meet the goal. That is one thing we need to consider future action. Thank you.
Thank you. Amelia, would you like to come in? Because Dr. Lee mentioned the open standards community as being, of course, very active, but the fact that there are also different life cycles and harmonization there is quite difficult. I think also, I think it was Svet, you mentioned Eclipse, and Max also mentioned Eclipse. So has that been our experience within Europe?
Yeah, no. And if you talk about, in particular, the cloud, is where we see that there is a lot of interaction needed with all these open source communities. And it's not by coincidence that one of the first initiatives that we ran to bring together the open source and the standardization communities was the first study made by the Open Forum Europe some 10 years ago on the interaction between the two communities. And more recently, the Joint Research Center of the European Commission made another analysis on how in the cloud and edge area, open source and standardization communities can work together. And we have examples in Europe, as you mentioned, the Eclipse. And last week we had a workshop organized also by Open Forum Europe discussing, you know, that we are now in the evaluation of the Regulation 1025/2012 on European standardization. And the workshop was one of the main points was how to deal with open source implementation and the relations between open source and standardizations, because both worlds can benefit if we have a win-win cooperation. And we have seen that there is still some reluctance between the two communities because of some different works of proceedings, of working. But we have seen also successful experience, like in Etsy you have the Mano for the orchestration, which is done in open source. Now you have the software development groups that are also developing some activities, or the OASIS experience. This is a good one where you define in a working item how do you want to do it. So there are good experience already, and I fully agree with Dr. Lee. There is a need of more integration between the two communities. There is also the need to look at the verticals versus the horizontals. So standards, and there are a lot of work to do, I think, as well. And one particular thing I would like to touch is the experience given by these large-scale pilots, because there you can start piloting the standards that are being developed in the different standards organizations, how they fit together, and then provide good feedback for the standardization organizations in order either to complete the standards or to upgrade that with from life experiences.
Thank you. So there's a call to action there to, at the very least, Carlos Palau, who's going to be coordinating one of those immensely complex large-scale pilots, to take these standards and to provide real feedback on, okay, where are the gaps? Where are these standards really facilitating that interoperability and access also to international markets? So coming back to you, Dr. Lee, you very helpfully here have 5 areas in which we can perhaps look at whether there are gaps. So the first point here is unified reference architectures. Within the European ecosystem, the unit, the IoT unit's been working on this for many, many years now. Where are you seeing within the Republic of Korea there are still gaps perhaps in which we can collaborate?
Sorry, I didn't capture the first words,
yes,
because of
yes.
network problem. Yeah.
Of course. So my question was, are there any gaps in unified reference architectures specifically within the Republic of Korea?
Yes. we actually have a not so much big problem for the unified reference architecture because in the beginning stage in the cloud computing standard, as I mentioned earlier, the ITU-T and the JTC1 as a collaborator to develop the one standard for vocabulary and the reference architecture. In Korean standard, just adopt international standard as a national standard. So in that sense, we're not so much confused to using to fill the gaps between the domestic and the international. However, right now, based on that, there will be a lot of different application, different expansion to other area, other vertical. In that case, probably the architecture needed to be extended with some new standard. So we just worry about that point. So in that case, we needed to create a new unified reference architecture we may. So we should think about the future, the variation of the reference architecture perspective. This is the current situation in Korea. Thank you.
Thank you. So I've already got 2 actions to take away, and this was something that Rolf and I think Max were specifically asking for. It's the reason this is a workshop is that we kind of delve into the things that we need to take away for further action. It's about information sharing, but it's also about saying this is what we need to do next. So I think I'd also like to follow on with the question of balancing the need for innovation. So again, large-scale pilots should be at the forefront of innovation, bringing in the whole of the cloud-to-edge technologies in very different domains. And Emilio, you touched upon the need to make sure that vertical standards and horizontal standards were aligned. How do you balance that need for innovation with a requirement for stability and consistency in standards? Because ultimately, the companies adopting these technologies cannot be changing, their product specifications and how those integrate with legacy technologies every 5 minutes. There does have to be some consistency. So how do you think we can balance that?
Yeah, this is a question, a challenge that I haven't heard.
To me or to?
Well, I think first of all to Emilio, and then I'll come back to you, Dr. Lee, if I may. Thank you.
So this is a challenge I have heard during many years in standardization. If you standardize too early, then you may block the innovation because then you are fixing things when the market is not there. If you standardize too late, then you may have already some proprietary solutions, and then good luck to try to break them and include open interoperability standards. So this is really the challenge, to find the balance. One could be, again, anticipation. So you need to have the views of all the stakeholders, in my opinion, and that's why, for instance, you're talking about large-scale pilots, but before large-scale pilots, you have all the research the projects that are lower in the TRA scale, and there you already, and we are insisting a lot, for instance, in the EU-funded projects that Max also was talking about anticipating standardization needs and bring as soon as possible the ideas into the standardization groups. So you can try to reach really this balance, and the only way is, and we have seen in the past, to bring all the stakeholders. So from the users that should bring the requirements to the technology providers, to the real innovators, SMEs, academia. Because if you just let to the technology providers, then they may think, okay, I have the solutions for these guys, but the users may not need those exactly, and may need another ones. And then we enter into another conundrum where the standards will not be implemented by the market. So I don't think that there is a magic solution to do that, but rather the collaboration and work together in order to really identify what are the standardization needs, where that they come from the research, and then bring it all together and a dialogue with the different standardization organizations.
So very interesting. So you see research also, so R&D, the research projects as being bellwethers for future standards. So at least we can start to prepare. Dr. Lee, how's this done in Korea? How do you make sure that there is sufficient stability, but also there's leadership in what standards need to be developed in these new technologies.
So nowadays, everything is rated by the AI technology. So not only the edge computing, the cloud computing, the many other services is needed to be enhanced by the AI technology. So in Korea is very much fast the evolving. So the one of the challenging point for standard is to react for those the movement to adopt the AI technology. So we should think about how to improve our existing standard to support AI technology. So that is one thing we needed to think about for the standard in Korea. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we've got 2 minutes left. So are there any questions from the audience? Yes.
Just one remark is that Edge, I know Dr. Lee because we met in London a couple of weeks ago in the plenary and when he was working on the edge computing. So we have standards on Edge in SC38. We also have SC41, work on architecture, and we have to exactly address what you just said. So let's try to make it. And I have to say that thanks to the work from AIoTI and the PWI on architecture consideration for IoT Edge Cloud. So we have the material coming from the European projects to push standards, okay? So now we're waiting for the same material from Korean partners so that we get together and we try to push to have a common standard. Thank you.
You have a task, Tanya.
Yeah, so that was the point of today, to come away with a big to-do list of things that we could achieve through both INSTAR and CEI-Sphere. Dr. Lee, thank you so much for joining us for the presentation.
I'd like to say thanks, Antonio.
Everyone likes to say thanks to Antonio. He's definitely one of the people promoting standardization and collaboration across Europe. Again, Dr. Lee, thank you so much for joining us remotely. Hopefully next time it'll be in person, but you're well represented also here by 3 of your colleagues. So we're looking forward to working with them across not just Cloud-Edge-IoT, but AI and other, cybersecurity and our other INSTAR technological priorities. Emilio, as ever, thank you so much for being part of the panel. Hopefully you'll also stick around so that we can have conversations in the next coffee break. And thank you all. Where Brendan Coffee is? Just outside, hopefully, yes? And so 30 minutes. So please join us again at 11. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Great. Thank you very much, everyone, for coming back in. As I was saying, a 30-minute coffee break is such a luxury at these type of events. So I hope you took all the advantage of it. And now we continue on with the next session, which is picking up on these horizontal actions, but very much looking at what's happening on the global scene. So if I can hand over to Antonio, who will be introducing his panel and be giving us a short overview of what's happening within these committees at international level and global view. Thank you, Antonio.
Thank you, Brendan. So I'm going to ask Dario and Christian to step in and to sit here, okay? Does it work? Is the slide working? Oh, okay. Okay, thank you. So you see we are 3, myself, Dario and Christian will introduce, they will introduce themselves. I will introduce myself later, okay? So I want to just to stick to get directly to the core of the discussion, which is priority horizontal standardization action for Cloud-Edge-IoT. So we have lots of horizontal aspects. What are the priorities? How do we standardize them, okay? And so Dario will probably mention a few things he's working on. He's a HC distinguished chair of MEC, Mobile Edge Computing, I think, okay? And so that's one aspect. And Christian is really an IEC guy, so very much involved in verticals, in applications, in real things. Okay, so he can give also his view. Okay, so I'm going to start by saying that we are, let's say, faced with what I'm going to call domain interplay. Okay, and here I put 4 aspects: horizontal domain technology, IoT cloud edge on the left, so I put that first, but you have digital twin, AI, mobility, brain computing, quantum, virtual world, and so forth, okay? On the right, you have cross-cutting characteristics, and there are domains, okay? Security, privacy, trustworthiness, resilience, sustainability, interoperability, okay? And below, you have vertical domains. So on the left, you have health, energy, transport, manufacturing, finance, and so forth. And you also have, I'm going to call them ecosystem, smart cities, and even conformity. I could say maybe it's an ecosystem, okay? So we have all those things to take into account when we're focusing on a cloud edge IoT, okay? So also what you have to see is really fragmented. Don't want to get into the details, but here I only put some of the committees I knew and I'm involved, but there are many others, okay? How do we coordinate this? This is the issue which actually the SDOs have to ask themselves. And here we have a good, the luck that the Commission, because it's unifying, can help us doing that and give some kind of directions where to go, okay? So you can see we want to focus on the continuum, okay? The continuums, IoT, cloud, and edge. On top, you have horizontal domains, okay, which I showed, and below the vertical domain. How do we combine them? What is the impact of all those things in the tiny things, which is big actually, the continuum that we are working on, okay? So that's the idea, okay? So that being said, I hope this is okay. I'm going to give the floor to Dario. Well, who wants to be first? Dario, you are going first, okay? So can you switch to her? Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
This one?
Yeah. Do you have slides?
Yes, I have some slides. And in the meantime, okay, so thank you so much for inviting me. I'm very delighted to be here. And oh, thanks
Push
for
this
the
button.
fantastic. Great. So I have the slides I ask maybe to be shared as well and afterwards, so that you don't have to be worried about capturing all the contents there. It's meant to be for public consumption, no secrets, but the more we share, the better it is. Now I want to make the best of our meeting now. And I was thinking when I was capturing the Wi-Fi password, rock your meeting, right? So this inspired me, okay, let's rock my presentation. I just want to start, I never do that, but I believe it's something that you can do with me. I want to ask you just a small survey, one question. Who already knows what is ETSI-MEC? So very few people, the other people assume it's the first time you heard about ETSI-MEC, right? That's great. The few guys who responded, yes, I know it. Who of you knows very well ETSI-MEC? One. Okay, cool. That's the perfect audience for me. Because if it was the opposite, I was asking you, please, clean up your mind, forget what you know about ETSI-MEC. And now let's establish a little bit, let's say, a baseline for what is ETSI-MEC about. Because Antonio spotted a big mistake of ETSI-MEC. Usually when this standard body started to work, the MEC acronym was about MEC, Mobile Edge Computing. Let's forget it, because since 2016, the acronym was kept unchanged and with the meaning multi-access edge computing. So you may think this is just
Sorry, my big fault. I knew it.
No. Thanks, because this gives me an opportunity to demystify Mac, right? And this is really a prejudgment. On the other slides I've seen before, ETSI-MEC is telecom centric. No, forget it. ETSI-MEC is a globally applicable standard also for non telecommunication network. Multi-access edge computing means not only cellular networks. So yes, we are aligned, fully aligned with 5G. The slide from TTA was correct. Thank you, Sungkyun. But not limited to cellular network. So I'm perfectly comfortable in talking with you about MEC today because it's really trying to address wider scope, all the market, not only telecommunication networks. Yes, we are aligned with 5G, 100%, but not only. We can address Wi-Fi networks, fiber connection, and IoT space. Also, we are collaborating with the 1M2M and Smart M2M on the standardization and harmonization of that. So this was, now you can start sleeping. You have all the information you needed. And then, of course, this was just my way of rocking the presentation. Now it's going more regular. You feel more relaxed. My message is, please read the slides with interest, with a clean mindset. This is really a globally applicable standard in ETSI, despite of the name, and not limited to cellular network. Compatible with the cellular network, yes, because it's very important. Not limited to that, and compatible also with IoT. And so I'm very happy to talk with you about the next steps, what we can do to really enable interoperability and go to market for the edge and IoT products. Okay, so another thing, this is just the proof. Don't trust me because I'm a nice guy. No. This is really a huge ecosystem. I'm pleased to be chairman of a very geographically distributed ecosystem of companies between big corporations, small enterprises, SMEs, startups, research centers, universities, academias, and also some governments and governmental agencies. More than 180 members and participants. I was started to be chairman. It was about 120. Now it's really continuously growing. Not because I'm a good chairman, but because edge computing is really becoming mature as a market and diverse in terms of geography. My vice chairs are from different companies in different regions, and this is really the proof that this is having a global stake as a standard and driven by industry. Okay, so multi-access edge computing, essentially cloud computing at the edge of the network, not saying at the edge of the mobile network. The wording is very important. Okay, cool. So if in fact, I challenge you guys, this is the architecture. I challenge you to find anything related to 5G. It's really cloud computing at the edge. So very respectfully, I was disagreeing with the first item. We need a unified reference architecture. No, please, don't fall into the temptation to reinvent the wheel. Please reuse. This is our approach. Let's do everybody of us. Let's not re-engineer, over-engineer, over-standardize. Let's collaborate. I'm happy that the opening talk was about please accelerate, please execute. And second item of the presentation from TTA, I agree fully. We need global harmonization of standardization. We don't need unified reference architecture. Let's study it. I challenge you, you send me an email if you spot anything related to cellular network. It's really access agnostic architecture. If you want to morph it, the MEC architecture, to NFV, here you see NC NFV terminology for the virtualization. If you want to morph it and tailor to 5G, this is the harmonization with the 3GPP edge up SA6 architecture, but it's always a variant of the MEC architecture. I don't go too much in detail, but let's talk technically. If you want offline, I'm always available. Really, ETSI MEC architecture, it's open standard based on access agnostic technology, cloud computing at the edge, and based on virtualization, of course, nowadays. We cannot avoid doing that. Not only supporting virtual machine, but also containers. And we are very much open. Why? I will tell you in a few minutes. So really, we're trying to address the needs of the application developers at the edge. And the main, if you allow me, main core business of ETSI MEC specification is to produce something which is usable for application developers, API, application programming interfaces. What they really matter. What matters for them is only what is usable. They don't care about standards, guys. It's a standard guy telling you, we make a standard, but application developers, they need to see working code and see reference implementation, open source software, and play with that, and because we need to accelerate the adoption. So this was truly our question we asked ourselves. What are we doing? We are standardizing something and creating paper at the end. If nobody is reading that, is useless. That's why we started the code working group a few years ago inside Mac with complementary information and complementary activities, sorry, which are not traditional standard specification. Why? Because adoption is at least equally important and as the standard produced. You can specify and publish a perfect standard. If nobody is using it, it's useless, right? So at the end, the working group, my vice chairman is chairing the code working group for Mac, deployment and ecosystem engagement activities. You can see open API, open source representation, published in Etsy Forge. You go in forge.etsy.org, you find open API representation of the APIs. This can be usable not only by humans, but also by machines. It is written in TTC and tree and robot languages for test automations. Etsy, let me open a parenthesis. I'm happy to see that in the first presentation today to see compliance and certification. For the first, we have established a lot of special task force for compliance tests and automation. For certification, Etsy is not taking responsibility on that. I'm happy to collaborate and see complementarity on that, okay? But we offer tools that can help the execution of automated test suites. And Mac proof of concepts, deployment trials with multi-operators in 5G live networks. Yes, I cannot avoid, this is also driven by operators. Why not? But the standard is really not limited to that. Please remember that message. And of course, we have a sandbox. Sandbox is a nice tool, software, simple reference platform for edge computing, open to everybody. You have a GitHub account, you go there for free, try-mac.etsy.org, and you have a Mac server instantiated for you. You can play out with the APIs and send a HTTP request, receive back a response, and really play with the software. So it's not just the standard, but for every specification, we made great efforts also to translate into software, usable software for developers. Okay, let's use that. Otherwise, our work is not useful, okay? And I'm really inviting people to share this information, which is practically an example of what can be done with standards. And soon, I guess and hope this will be also integrated even better with other initiatives in open source communities. I cannot tell now, but there is a great plan for giving even more consumable to the wider audience, this software. Of course, we are collaborating with open source communities, Linux Foundation, Camara project, and via also multiple special task force. We are organizing hackathons and competitions since 2018. So it's a multi-year plan, plug test for interoperability, multiple platforms interoperating with multiple Mac applications and so on. So huge work done in many phases. Now we are heading to the future and very willing to be rocked. You have to rock me. I'm not just rocking the meeting. You rock me, please. Challenge me and tell me what you see as a priority. I'm very happy to come back home and say to my guys, we have seen a lot of pressure on this and that topic. Let's accelerate on those things. This is the current plan for the Mac phase 4, ending at the end of 2026, but we can change over time, even now. So I'm very happy that you maybe provide your priority list, your wish list, to make more pressure to the group and say, guys, we have to accelerate on some topics which are here or which are not still not foreseeing.
I can just say one thing. So I like to see here alignment and collaboration with other SDOs.
Fantastic. This was
implicit,
but let's make it explicit. I take this as a task. I will do that. And 1 second, just 1 second. So to be honest, we have to little bit, because the standards, so let's say not slow, but needs time to be adopted, right? And then you have to think about, let's say in perspective, what you do in the standard should be also lasting for the time. So it's really the time to think about Mac towards 6G, not because, let's be honest, nobody can predict what 6G will be. Of course, we don't have the crystal ball, but it's really, if you look at the timeline, 2026, end of 2026, it's important to now to establish the baseline for the support, because as I said, Mac is access agnostic. We are not designing the radio interface of 6G, so we are perfectly free to think about what can be the next cloud evolution, edge cloud evolution, including devices and IoT, to support the next generation of communication and computation systems. I like it a lot, the opening talk from the commissioner. So it makes sense to think about what can be in the scope for Maxing 6G. I will give you, you will find the material here. Also security is important and collaborations with other SDOs and open source communities, yes. But important thing is to hear from the experts from the various fields. Mac is supporting many verticals and use cases. We are not the experts on those verticals. We don't want to become experts on those. We want to listen at their needs and their pain points and understand where and how edge computing standardization makes sense or not. So really, this is an open door. We established a sort of dialogue, where a sort of a series of events where we want to listen at their needs. We call them edge discovery events. We organized a first event with the specialists on drones vertical, because we are not experts on drones. The question is, do you see a value in edge computing? What do you need for that? To extract information for your flight establishment, approval, and so on, or maybe adaptation via radio network information gathering or in real time. Any kind of information you need from your vertical market domain, please let us know, and we will see what we can do to support you. Same story for spatial computing and gaming, metaverse, and so on. So really, we want to listen at their needs, and opening also the call for everybody. If you have any priority in mind in terms of verticals, we can also organize the next event on that. I'm concluding. Task Force Edge Native Connector, very much focused on harmonizing with the edge computing software implementation, also in other bodies. CAPI for 3GPP experts is a great tool which is allowing everybody, any API invoker, also external to 3GPP networks, TM Forum, but also proprietary implementations of API can be integrated into this kind of API gateway, which is also promoted by some key stakeholders in a Linux Foundation Camara project. It's a huge thing. We are implementing with the humility the software to give you as a tool and to enjoy and use for API establishment, also including in the future federation, which is important for Europe, I believe. Last but not the least, just 1 second, no. Yes, this slide, only this slide, 10 seconds. I believe it's important for Edge and IoT. It's perfectly in scope of our workshop. You can find here a white paper published more than 1 year ago, I believe, with the officials from ETSI-MEC, 3GPP, 1M2M, Smart M2M, and other stakeholders and experts on Edge and IoT. And we have tried to understand how the standards are compatible. I believe this is the baseline. We are kind of establishing this as a starting point to start in the next year, beginning of next year. Stay tuned. There will be a special task force, possibly funded by European Commission, ESMEA call in 2025, exactly to work on that. So I have to say I'm pleased to gather your requirements, because there will be possibly some activity that we can do. It will be important if we do something useful for the community. So I'm happy that this task force will be steered by your requirements and requirements from this workshop and the future dialogues.
Thank you, Dario. I think.
Thank you.
Now we had a very good presentation on the Mac, and I want to switch to Christian, and he's going to present. This so.
Okay, take
that is your slide.
Yes, that's my slide.
Okay, so you can push, or you want me to?
No, I can do
So
it.
this one.
It's even better.
Yeah.
I do it. Okay, maybe I introduce myself. Originally, the question was for DKI. I'm not from DKI, but I have many projects together with DKI, and I'm also in IEC standardization. Here's my ST12, but mostly I'm working in TC65. That's industrial processor management or control system. ST12 is not my topic today. Mr. Johannes Stein, he is responsible for all electric society in the DKI. There's a huge action and concepts. And relating to our topic today, we have some projects. Okay, this is my starting point because I look a little bit different to the world here from the semantic interoperability point of view. Have a look here at the bottom. At the bottom, we have two things. One is a real world. So all our activities in automation interact with the real world, and something going on in the real world, even during the information will be processed. So the real world is always changing. The devices are real. And additionally, we consider that all these real world things have a life cycle from ideation and planning, operation, and even post-mortem. Even these are there. And we have to have a digital representation out of this. So we have look to this. Maybe it's very similar. In Germany, we want to have this health documents for each person. Yes, this is a digital twin of a human, nothing else. And all information going in there, and it's all over the life cycle, what it is, with very different representations. And this is what we have a digital representation. But we want to have it for each individual piece, for a motor, for a screw, for a machine, even for a plant. We want to have this as a thing. So both aspects, life cycle as well as physical worlds are behind. And the application, there are very multiple ones, and they has to access to this. You see, we have our real world, and this is real world processing over the time. So even we have to have means in our digital representation which face that this change, the world is changing over the time. And I have said this, and now we are here in the edge and cloud thing. This is one mean we can use to have this digital representation. Yeah, this is one mean to do this. And of course, we want to have interoperability in both vertical ones as well as in horizontal over the life cycle. So this is a huge issue. And maybe this is our digital twin here. Maybe we go ahead here. Maybe here. Yes. This is a very, oh, the animation is not there. Sorry for this. The background figure, maybe it's a little bit easy, but it's a very fundamental issue. If one want to have interoperability, it's not in fixed things. There are many intermediate steps to reach this. And even it's not for an entire application, that is sometimes for specific aspects of applications. Yeah? And what we need is a basic here, and maybe this is an example here of Gaia X or something can be, maybe Mac is one, also a platform, but from my point of view, it's only a means. It's not the thing of the semantic interoperability. It's only a means to transport something, yeah? And then I want to highlight here in my presentation two things. One is dictionaries and terminology, which have to be machine interpretable and machine readable, and this activity asset administration shell as a digital twin, which can be implemented. I have two examples here. And what's here on the top is processing description is missing. It's one of my giveaways at the very ending. Currently, I think we don't have so much in this direction. Okay. I want only to remember, this is here a reference architecture. This is not to implement. It's only a concept we can think about. And we have these 3 dimensions here. And I want only to start here with this dimension. What's the topic? The topic is if I want to have digital representation, even in the conceptual and the planning phase, there is the issue is not real there. It's only a concept. We have some documents out of this, but we have to describe this document as well. It's Christmas time, and we want to make a cookie, yeah? And you think we have a form, and this is a type. And then we have the cookies. Yeah, and then we printed out the cookies, and then the cookies have a life cycle, and we can eat it, and even post-mortem there's something. Yeah, so I want to highlight that we has to have one concept, type and instance, and if we don't have this, yes, we can't manage the life cycle of it. And it's not only that we have during operation or during the thing is real there, we have to have it before it's real there, and after it's real there, it's also it has to be there. Now I come to my next topic. Sorry, there was animation in my slide. You see here, and it's very automation, yeah. You see here the remote I/O, and if you want to measure something, yeah, you take here a meter, and as a human, it's very easy. You have a look at the meter, and you know exactly what is your button there. Maybe it's voltage, or it's current, or something like this, and then you see a value, and then you know exactly which is the engineering the unit of the value, and even you know where you have to place here at the wire, and then you know maybe this value here is for temperature or something like this. But we want to have it machine interpretable. This is what we need. And therefore, we need a description of each individual piece which we have here in our environment. And for this, we need dictionaries. And here is an example. And you see the standard there. This is ISO and IEC in the same way. And there are even already existing dictionaries which are machine interpretable. One is IEC CDD, maybe somebody has heard about this. And we have also the activity of E-class. But now the problem is the following. In our life cycle, we have a lot of information during planning, catalog data, electrical data, and pneumatical data, net planning, a lot of stuff what we have. And we never can change because this is physics. You can't harmonize pneumatic, electric, and machinery. It's not possible. We need this individual descriptions which we have. There are a lot of models. We have tools for planning and operation for this. But what we can do, we can put all of this in these dictionaries, and this is exactly how it's working. If you speak with a mechanical engineer or with an electrical engineer, sometimes they can't understand because they are coming in from their physical worlds, from their models which they have. But what we can do, we can standardize even the dictionaries of this one. That's the application who needs this information can access the right information in the different one. This is cross-domain. Not cross-domain, the terminology, but cross-domain, how to deal with this. And the standard, which I have mentioned, 61360, this is a mean to do this. Now I come to examples. We have done with DKE together one example in the energy. We have the photovoltaic plant things. And the idea was to have a description of the components. And for this component, we have this digital product passport. And the digital product passport, we assume in our project that was delivered by each manufacturer. This is tier 1, yeah. And then there is an net operation planner and instruction, the planning guy and the operator. And we put all the information together to one digital twin, not the digital twin of the individual pieces. We put it together to the plant. And then we have a representation of the plant, and the plant has a hierarchy of all the components. And then I can access all the components, and who looks electric gets the electric one, and who looks mechanics, and who looking to the certificates, he finds the certificate in this one. And this is how it's done. We have this administration shell. This is a modular structure. We can put very different information in pieces there, and the pieces are exactly for one of the aspects. Yeah, the one we call a submodel. One submodel is for one aspect, for mechanical, maybe for the boilerplate, or maybe for certificates or for other things. And then we have one common description. It's not a description of the detail. These are in the dictionaries, but it's a description how to access the details for the individual point of the application. And if we put this together with the digital twin and the administration shell, we call this DPP 4.0. This is a mean to do this. And as I've mentioned in our application, we have shown how this could work. I've taken this one in addition. We need also an integration of existing technologies. And one of the technology in our world is OPC UA. This is an interface standard with information models. And with this standard, we have shown that even from Europe, we can become an international player. So all over the world, OPC UA is in our industrial automation world at home. So our idea is maybe we can do it with the administration shell once again. Okay, sorry. Yeah. There's another one. This is from ZBEI. This is an organization for the electrical and electronic industry in Germany. And we have shown how tier 1 and tier 2 components can be brought together with the same concept. And even one of the applications was that you put in one component and you get it out and put another one in, and automatically all the information are in the digital twin of and this is the cabinet in this example here. Okay, we have not so much time. I have to run here. No? The last one is, even if we have this representation of this maybe cabinet, there are multiple players outside of the plant. They are the manufacturer, they are the system integrator, and so on. And even one can do an ecosystem out of this based on the administration shell. Once to say the administration shell is not the platform. The administration shell is a semantic means to understand the information. We can even use maybe the Mac. It would be a good trial to have a look, to put the administration shell in the Mac, and then we can see how this is working. These are my gifts away. You can read it. I believe that the administration shell is one good means to do this, but we need most of all the dictionaries behind. And I want to be a last example. Maybe you have seen the film or read the book Hitchhiking Through the Galaxy. Yeah, and there's one scene in it. It's a topic about the universe and many living things, working together. And there's a restaurant. In the restaurant, they are from very different galaxies, and their look are very different, and they can't understand each other. But they have something which is called Babelfish. They put it in the ear, and then they talk and can understand each other. So each remains in his world, but they need something to interact and understand and understand the words. And this is exactly what I believe we can do with this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Cross-domain is an interface. No, I think, yeah. So thank you. We have like now about 10 minutes to discuss. I want to first of all give my reaction to the two presentations. First of all, we had one which is very Etsy telecom oriented, and one which is very engineer oriented, very complementary. Okay, so multi-access computing is definitely a need, and you said, okay, architecture maybe not the right term, unified architecture, so we need to discuss that. But in reality, the key word is reusability, okay? So reusability means that we must agree on terminology, okay? So that's why with the Commission, we started this taxonomy of what we do. So we do not focus on the architecture, but first of all on taxonomy, but then we can discuss what are the features, okay? So this is the view, and we definitely need to work more with Etsy on this. We are not going to reinvent it, we just need to use it, okay? That's the point. The second thing is, very important here, is the life cycle of the physical entity and the digital entity, and the fact that we need to have, I heard the term, a single source of truth, but how you describe the thing, all of it. And this is what you are saying, okay? Single source of truth. And this is why you mentioned SARF. We are trying to solve that, okay? I'm not saying we have the right solutions, but we have to work together so we get there, okay? So first of all, do you have a reaction about my comment?
I totally agree with what you said. Thank you for summarizing this, Antonio. Really, reusing what is available in the standards and make it applicable, if pertinent for the domain you are considering, is always a good approach. Let's work together. There is more work to do. I'm not saying that in ETSIMEC we have completed our work, and we need to progress, and also this kind of collaboration is very much important to steer our work as well. I will say, not only having in mind the standard per se. Again, as a standard guy, I'm not just proud of my work just because maybe it's, again, adoption matters. You remember the opening talk. So at the end, also collaboration with open source. I'm pleased to see that someone mentioned the Eclipse Foundation. There will be this AISME project also with the people from Eclipse Foundation, the steering committee. Antonio will be involved as well. So we will have possibly tools and a special task force to have practical collaboration and the resources to really steer our future work. I like also the presentation from the previous speaker about this semantic, and it's important to align the dictionary. I'm very happy that he's addressing a key important point for the industry. I'm capturing maybe something I'm more using to collaborate with GACIA. I guess you have a similar approach, or maybe some of you are aligned with this kind of organization. I like so much also the way they are kind of trying to address a very complicated and complex topic, but it's really important for all of us.
So, Mr. we need your guidance, because the industry has lots of knowledge on how to make it happen, so that we generalize it at the horizontal level, okay? So because you're much further than us in many things, we're trying to do it. So, but the risk is you could be siloed by working still on your own domain. So we need to open doors so that we can collaborate. What do you think?
Yeah, therefore I've chosen these two things. The digital product passport is something because single point of truth, there is the information coming from the manufacturers. Yes, this is what's real starting point. Without this information, you can do any application. This is one thing. And the second thing is that I believe that what I have shown here, that the terminology is important. What's not good enough here, because time, I have project there, and we have worked with LMMs, with large language models, and even this could be a very great help. That's for us, that we can do not all manual work. So this would be a big accelerator for our work if we do this AA stuff. But there's a big problem. These LMMs, this large language, so this is our not generate AI, it's AI. Yeah, this works with text. Our standard text are not open. So the AI don't know what's in our standards. Nothing. Zero. Yes. And if you don't open this, yes, the AI work not in this specific domain. And the topic is, in our automation world, not 92% is good enough precision. We need 100%. Otherwise, the robot will do something else. Just 8%. So we need to open this. This is a big issue.
So this issue is above us, and I think everyone understands that we need to. And Emilio, I think we probably have this undertaking how to make it happen, because you asked me many questions about this SDO, the SDO, what is available, what is not. But at least we need to communicate. So where should edge computing be standardized? I really think it's a distributed. So it's a challenge, but we still will have to work together, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Edge continuum includes, of course, all the devices from the far edge and with limited capabilities. They are constrained devices. You have the network edge, why not? You have on-premises, and then, of course, by absolute. Now, for example, let's make architecture, even remote cloud can be part of that. It cannot be excluded. So edge continuum actually matters, and the standard should include all those elements of this change.
So let's work together. I just want to show that
with the thanks to AIoT, we published a paper on the evolution of interoperability standards. Many of things Christian mentioned, less about you, but you can contribute about that, where we have interoperable standards of concept of architecture and then of systems. Okay, and so this is a very global. It's going to be a public document, and then with another document which goes more into the details of how do we make sure that we speak the same language. Okay, and again, Christian, I would like you to have a look to that and give me the right stuff so that we have the good recommendation. It has been reviewed by your colleague Laurent Guise. Okay, so it's good. Okay, but you see recommendation about SARF, and it's about how do we make it happen so that we speak the same language or converge without reinventing the wheel.
Yeah. Let me make a point on SARF. In the paper I showed here before in my presentation, in collaboration with 1M2M and Smart M2M, we are pointing also that the fact that there is a great work on SARF ontology. Let's use it. Used for the definition of the data objects and information from various verticals. This is really a complex and heterogeneous world. So let's use this huge effort, which can be very beneficial for all of us. And it's also complementary with the ETSI. Complementary with
a small point with this. What my experience is, the problem or the topic is in the detail. This is a topic. I have a look at Zaraf. I have a look at smart semantic sender networks and all the things. But have a look at the temperature transmitter has 60 parameters. A drive has 3,000 parameters. So it's not easy to model this. And therefore one has to keep the knowledge in the domain, and we have to do something not to reinvent the knowledge of the domain, because all the tools are there. You can make maybe a manufacturing of a car. Yes, this has 200 robots and 200 PLCs and have network with 2,000, 3,000, 5,000 devices. And each parameter has to have the right value, otherwise it will never fly. And therefore we need these details.
Christian, thank you. So it's all about reusability, including of terminology. We do not reinvent the wheel. So I want to thank you, because we need to switch to the next item in the agenda, which is led by Damir, I think. Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Exactly, Antonio. I think the theme of the next couple of days are don't go too far from the microphone. So next, progressing away from those need for harmonization and then translating that into what the Cloud-Edge-IoT looks like, and also the interoperability of data spaces, and how do we action that into a trust-based environment and moving forward in the certification. So handing over to Damir, who's Secretary General for the Alliance for Internet of Things and Edge, and recently and AI innovation.
Let's keep adding.
Yeah. I mean, everyone's tacking it on everywhere. And he'll be talking with Antonio and also Daniel Alonso from BDVA. So over to you, Damir.
Thanks. Which one is working? Okay. Can we have the slides up?
So you take this and
Yeah.
So I'll do it.
Oh, okay. It's all wait.
Oh, it's already there?
Okay. So we did this.
Next.
This one. Okay. So hello everyone. Thanks for joining this workshop. And like Brandon already mentioned, so we heard, I would say, from the beginning, what are, let's say, the building blocks. Then we entered much more into the standardization, the needs, interoperability, and actually how to link all of those initiatives together, hopefully at the global level. But of course, we are coming from the European perspective. And now the thing is, of course, then once when you have all of this, how can you be sure that this all kind of fits together, and actually that you have some sort of the, let's call it evidence that this is kind of trustworthy and actually safe to use in a way. So let's start just with a very short introduction. Just very basically, why conformity in general? So in Europe, I think there was, I would say, almost a global leader more than 30 years ago with the so-called CE mark. And then, of course, a lot of legislation that came, let's say, more specifically about this, because CE mark is in general compliance and product safety. But then you have a lot of specific directives and regulations that came after this. And of course, this is just a couple of them. There's a bunch of them that you can't even list all of them. And then, of course, none of it, it's very specific to Cloud-Edge-IoT, right? This is more, let's say, either general or more specific in other domains. And then, of course, now you have a new, let's say, legislation that talks about conformity and product safety and so on, like Data Act, AI Act, Cybersecurity Resilience Act. And then, of course, this is actually what kind of exists. So you have a lot of individual schemes. Most of these schemes are covering only parts of it. So it either goes to the cloud, let's say, security certification or to the IoT devices, but none of it is in a way tackling overall Cloud-Edge-IoT continuum as such. So if you use, let's say, more complex solution, and we heard about from Dario and so on, you know, what else is coming, then okay, what's happening with that? There is no specific certificate to this. So the thing is, of course, that like I said, no scheme covers end-to-end, so to say. And then I think it's useful to see what could be done, what we can take a look at and actually do about this. And this is why we are kind of thinking about so-called CEI trust label, not call it certification as such. I think there is a lot of certificates out there. And what was also mentioned today, I would say rightly so, let's not reinvent the wheel. The point is not like to reinvent the things or just to kind of repackage them. The thing is to see what is there, because I think in many cases, people are not even aware what's there on a lot of cases, or only partially. And if you use something like, let's say, continuum, then it's very difficult to say what works there. So I think that this is something that should be taken into account and see. And then, of course, if we are able to come to the, let's say, common understanding and concept in Europe, to see, working, of course, with our international partners, is it something that it will be, that they also find it useful? And then, of course, to see how to apply this. So this is basically more or less all that is mentioned. And of course, we will build on what is already done in the Unlock CEI project. So again, not inventing or reinventing things, but use what is there. And then, of course, what is already developed in the international SDOs. Notably, we have examples from NETSI, ISO, IEC. And then again, to include all these existing certification scheme, again, not reinventing the wheel. And I list here most of the areas that actually this will be done. And then these are the objectives that basically I think we already kind of partially mentioned. And I think this goes basically what everyone said today in a way. We just kind of summarize how to kind of, I wouldn't say prove it, but let's say demonstrate it at the end. Because of course, you have the idea, you have the system, you have a standard that kind of see what is the compliance there. And then you have the label that actually shows that this is all kind of within what was mentioned in there. So this is the sort of the general idea. And then basically this is something that I would like all of us to think about and to hopefully discuss today and also later during the lunch break, because I think this session stands before you went into lunch, which is always not good. So basically what this trust label should cover, how to ensure this, what we can call end-to-end coverage, not just individual parts. Security, interoperability, sustainability. That's very important. And then, so it was my side in the introduction. And then I don't know, Antonio, if you want to continue or which slides are. Yes, yours on the next one. Thanks.
So, thank you. So I'm going to give some overview of what is conformity and some thinking about the label. Okay. So first of all, the speaker, because I didn't present myself, I was a co-founder of Trialog, working on many standardization activities, whether they are horizontal or vertical. Okay. Here is a view of all the committees I'm involved. So a circle ellipse is a committee, but in reality, what is interesting are the relationship, the square dots. Okay, they are the liaison. Okay, and the difficulty, the problem is here more than other one, because we're talking about integration issue. Okay, and today, if I have one message, is that standardization doesn't work well on liaison. It's really the good old days approach. Okay, so we need to improve this drastically because the strategy is defined at the liaison level because we integrate. Okay, so that was just 2 seconds. I also want to mention that I'm taking material from this document, which I already showed later. Okay, so this document says that we have 2 types of conformance requirements. One is conformance to standard, and this is ISO Casco. And the other one is conformance to interoperable requirements. This is what we really want to do, okay? And you have technical, semantic, organizational, legal. So we don't know the vocabulary, all the issues, okay? And we have lots of committees working on that. So then who would be at the end defining the trust label in this picture, okay? Maybe AIoTI, okay? So just want to show because the slide will be available. Here are the resources that you can have access. Everything is readable, is explained here. So I'm not going to get to details. They define two things that are important. What is conformity assessment and what is the object of conformity assessment? Okay, so I'm going to skip that. And this picture is important. On the left, you have the object of conformity and the requirements for conformity. On the right, you have the three types of attestation, whether it's self-declaration, contractual, or certification. In the middle, you have the organizations that are doing the verification and attestation, and they must be accredited, okay? So if you have this, you are in the virtual cycle for conformity assessment, okay? I'm not reinventing the wheel, just showing what's going on, okay? Here an example, an organization conforms to 27001 and he follows the standard, okay? But in reality, so I'm not sure what I did, but I did something. Sorry, I did something. So I'm at. So where should I be? I think I pushed the button and then, okay, so I'm here. Okay, good. Sorry, I pushed too fast, okay? So then now you have 2701, 4201. So what about the organization, okay? He should reuse the evidence for conformity because he's not going to be double the cost. It has to be an incremental increase, okay? So this is the issue, management of evidence reusability. We're talking about reusability, but not only on architecture, but also on the proof that you're doing the things correctly. Okay? So this is important, and this is really underestimated. Okay. So the same thing for common criteria, which is the security. We have quite an ecosystem, but what we need is what happens when you have an update and you redo the whole thing. So you need to have agile performance. This is another issue. Okay. And the last but not least is for complex system, you start to include in the evidence architecture. We're saying the architecture is important, but yes, because you're going to use it to prove that you conform to something. Okay. So for instance, am I using the right Mac? So I'm going to have the architecture. So architecture-based assessment is also a trust factor. Okay. So what are the challenges for a trust label? So first of all, you have to see that there are lots of work on labels, levels, ratings, okay? SC27, SC41, SC42, SC32, IEC 62443, actually, so it's 443, 2.2, okay? And they have levels all along, okay? So what do we make out of them, okay? So that's quite important. And we also have initiatives. So for instance, Internet is proposing an eminent interoperability maturity model, which is what you see on the right, okay, with some, let's say, attributes, okay? And they also have a ITMAS, which is interoperability management system on the left, which is focusing on all the interactions in the ecosystems. How do we make sure that it operates correctly, okay? And you have the EU Smart Resilience Indicator, SRI, and this is a picture of the website, okay? So all those things, how do they relate to the label, okay? So either they are input or they are, we are an input to them, okay? So that's the point, okay? So what are the challenges, okay? We need a methodology to create a trust label, okay? So I'm mentioning here a German word called VCIO, Value Criteria Indicator Observable. So you start to observe, you create indicators, you have criteria, and you have a value. The value could be the label, okay? And but then we need to create a taxonomy of observables and indicators. And this is what we need to do. And this is what we are doing, actually, in this preliminary work item with the help of AI. We're doing it, okay? The second is the need for supply side consensus. The supply side must agree that, yeah, that's the right label, okay? So we must take into account all the technologies and provide the observables which the continuum is going to use. Okay? So this is the approach. So it's a challenge, okay? By the way, when I say challenge, it also means action. So you can also replace it by action. We need to do it. Okay. Then the need for the demand side, because the demand side have to agree. You are providing this, so what is the purpose? What is the value for it? Okay. So we need to liaise with those guys and to say, now we're doing this. Does it help you? Okay. So this is important. And last but not least, support regulations. Okay. So how do we support all those regulations? I'm sure I'm missing, but those all are related to harmonized standards in the pipe. So we need to first. And last but not least, this is the compositional label. So we must not have a flurry of labels. I try to give a vision that actually the continuum label would be taking into account IoT cybersecurity label, IoT system indicator, digital twin maturity, security program rating. And on top, we have other things like cyber resilience label, cybersecurity label, data protection label, AI resilience label. And my preferred one is interrelated label. To me, this is the most important one. And it goes into the direction of Christian has mentioned. Okay. I think I'm done with my presentation.
Thank you. And now we have Daniel Alonso from BDVA. Please take over.
Thanks, Dr. Mir. Thanks, Antonio, for letting me know, bring here the perspective of the on data. Basically, for two reasons. I think data is at the core of what we are discussing today, because on top of standards for connecting IoT, cloud and edge, we have to consider also standards for data. And today, some of the previous speakers talk about semantic interoperability, but data is beyond this point, but also because after the European data strategy published by the Commission in 2020, there has been a lot of work on standardization in data spaces, data sharing, and data interoperability. So I would like to provide a view of what we are doing today in this area, okay, and then later on we can also discuss with Antonio about that. So first, a few glimpses about BDVA, the Big Data Value Association. Okay, I like this slide because it not only refers our progress. We were founded 10 years ago in 2014 at the private counterpart of the Commission for the Big Data Value BPP partnership. And after those 10 years, we have evolved also integrating more members, but also we have been collaborating with many other initiatives. I think this is exactly what we are doing here today. Okay, so for instance, we are part of ADRA, the Artificial Intelligence Data and Robotics Partnership. We are also the members of the EuroHPC Joint Undertaking, and here we are bringing to this community the view from data and AI. And for instance, we are also very active in the discussion about AI factories and how to connect AI factories to data spaces. We are members of the Data Spaces Business Alliance together with Fireware, IDSA, and GaiaX. And exactly what we are doing there is also to try to reach some kind of convergence, technical convergence on how to build data spaces. And also we are also collaborating with other organizations, and I would like to emphasize that as a continuing initiative, okay, where together with BDVA, we are working with other 15 associations in Europe, with IoT, Eclipse, Fireware, EXO, and 6G, and so on, exactly to be able to connect all these technologies together. And I think we can also bring this discussion about how to harmonize standards on different technologies exactly to this forum. Okay, so I want just to emphasize that from BDVA, we are trying also to be at the core of this discussion, to link activities and also to link those different technologies. Okay. I wanted also to start with this slide. Probably most of you have seen it many times in the past. It's from the Brand Commission, and it summarizes pretty well the landscape of data spaces in Europe. Okay, so on top we have the different pieces of regulation, as some of them has been commented today, and they are very important because several standardization efforts come from standardization requests from the Commission about the Data Act, the AI Act, and so on. Okay. Then we have the several common European data spaces, and so far the European Commission has funded many activities in different sectors that are important for the European economy, and you will see there most of them. Then we have the so-called European Data Innovation Board, which is basically a board composed of member states and experts that are supporting the European Commission, also other initiatives, and also giving advice on how to reach this European data economy. And then we have also the Data Space Support Center, which is a very important CSA that I will later on talk about that is supporting the development and deployment of the European data spaces. And then on the bottom we have the different activities, and you can see here standards in the left side of the. But I think the standards cover all the action before the action that I explained before, because we not only cover the technical aspect, but also, for instance, in DSCC, we are working a lot with the standards, and also all data spaces are also covering standardization in different sectors. Okay, so in this picture summarizes pretty well what is going on now in Europe in data spaces, data sharing, and data in general. And then I would like to follow with this activity. Okay, probably most of you already know the high-level Forum on European Standardization. It's an expert group also from the Commission working on specific areas that are relevant for European economy and also to cover areas on standardization. And I had the pleasure to be part of this report. Okay. Published by the work stream on data interoperability. So this report was published in March this year, and it's a very exhaustive report, okay, that basically tried to address or to identify what gaps exist right now in the standardization for data, but also how what we can leverage from what is already there. So today I have heard many times that we don't have to invent the wheel, but rely on what is already there. And you can see here different recommendations, but in this paper, again, the first recommendation is about to initiate a standardization request from the Commission in support of a high-level trusted data framework, but also to complement this request. For instance, this report also advises on taking into account what is being doing the Data Space Report Center, also some action of ISO, for instance, GTC 1 SC40 for data governance. Also, for instance, to use some of the effort already there about how to describe metadata, the catalog, but also the work on SEMIC and BIT about semantic interoperability and so on. And also to rely on the regulation about the digital identity, the EIDAS regulation, and also to address also a framework for trusted ontologies and okay. So what we did in this report is following this flow that you can see there from data governance, data discovery, data sharing, and data usage, covering the different steps of data, and for each of them identify what aspects are relevant, and for each of them identify again what standards or what actions should be needed, but also what is also already there that can be also leveraged. Okay. Based on that, okay, later on the Commission also produce this standardization request, okay, basically to support the implementation of the Data Act, more especially the Article 33 that talks about interoperability, data spaces, and data interoperability. And you can see there that this request is composed by 5 items, okay. So starting from the first one about the maturity model for common European data spaces, again to leverage on the work that is done in the Data Space Report Center to produce this scorecard, okay, to assess the maturity of data spaces, also to work about trusted ontologies, and again here to leverage the work from SEMIC and DSCC, also to work on data catalog, and again to take into account the CAT standardization from W3C, but also from SEMIC, to work on data governance, and finally the complete standard has to be on trusted data transaction, and from that also this request and also the previous report also recommend to take into account also what we are also doing in this initiative. Okay, so I wanted also to talk about the SEN trusted data transaction workshop agreement, where many organizations in Europe are working together. Again, it is a pre-standardization activity, but it's also very related to what I was pointing before. Okay, so here the idea is to categorize what elements, what concepts, what characteristics should be included to characterize a data transaction at work. Okay, so here it is composed of 2 parts. The first part is to define key concepts, terminology, and mechanisms, and now we are working in the second part, which is to identify again trusted stakeholders and characteristics to feature a data transaction as workflow. So here is the work that we are doing, and here you can see, for instance, some components of the part 1 that have been already published, and you can check in the portal on SEN, and it will be also used to fit this GTC 25 that was part of the slide that Antonio presented before. Okay, the new Joint Technical Committee to address exactly this standardization request from the Commission for data management and spaces, cloud, and edge. So from DDBA, we are also planning to be a liaison of this JTC 25, and also here I put here also the 4 working groups that has been already composed. So the usual advisory group, one of data spaces, one of data management and governance, and also another one on cloud and edge. Okay. So from our side, again, we will contribute to this activity. And I think it's also very relevant for the work we are discussing today. And finally, my last slide is about the test cases for center. Okay, as I mentioned before, we are doing a huge work on this project to identify what standards are there to support the interoperability between data spaces. On the one hand, we have collected a huge list of standards also coming from the community, okay, in different sectors, and you can check those standards in the webpage of the project. But also, we have identified a few standards that should be taken to kind of the baseline for to connect data spaces. So, because many times people come to us and ask, okay, what standards I should consider? So we have come up with a few lists of standards to support that. Then we are also liaising with different SDOs as well, and also finally, as I mentioned before, we are participating in different activities of standardization. So it was just a glimpse of what we are doing in the data landscape. And okay, if you want to know more, I am happy to answer your question and happy to.
Thank you very much. And I think it's just, I would say, on time because we still have some minutes for the questions, because I think you heard a lot. You heard a lot of, I would say, conceptual things as well. So this was not just, to give you some sort of the overall. We gave you sort of the teaser what we want to talk about. You heard from Antonio quite a lot of, I would say, ideas and challenges. So I would say that's already quite start for the discussion. And then Daniel also added quite a lot of, let's say, data-related things. Now we say, okay, but I mean, this is part of the continuum. So, at the end of the day, when you talk about Cloud-Edge-IoT, okay, this, of course, will be used, among other things, to collect data for the database. So what will you feel database is big, right? So there is a link, and then on top of it, AI. And I think we have a very important, but also very complex picture there. So is there any of you that wants to actually question or comment? Because I think it would be good to hear your feedback about this. What do you think? What could be also used?
Yeah, hello. Hello, my name is Henrik Madsen, and I'm a professor in applied mathematics at the Technical University of Denmark. For me, it somehow seems that you are collecting a lot of data. You are creating digital twins, full-blown digital twins. But I think the purpose in the future with IoT solutions is to use the data and to use them in real time for control, power plant control, and wastewater treatment plants and so on. And I think many of the technologies, as I see it from when my books on modeling using data, it's not taking that into account. As I see it, maybe I'm totally wrong, but full-blown equipment cannot be used to control the treatment plant. We have shown that we need to simplify it, we need to take, because this is how to do it and be able to do it now. So we don't have time for cleaning data and things like that. So I comment on that because that was a comment maybe for all of you, that you seem to want collect a lot of high quality data, create high quality digital twins, but you are not really zooming in on the fact that the main value is in the real life, real time applications. As I see it, I might be proactive, but.
So you're right. I just want to mention that in SC41, we do have a standard on sensor collecting data. And actually, China has proposed a new work item on massive data processing in real time. Okay, this is the issue. Okay, and we are doing that, and it'll be better here in our work, take into account the real time aspect. Okay? And I believe we'll put the focus on that in some of the work here, because otherwise we'll miss this one.
Yeah, thanks so much, Maria, for taking the presentation. A comment from Henrik, because I had in mind, we had a long time ago, we had a project on an IoT data marketplace. The industry involved, everybody was enthusiastic. Now, afterwards, nothing happened. Why? Because you propose open standards, you propose open interfaces, and the open source framework. At the end of the day, the main industry was involved, as we had a very low level of digitalization. So, the effort, the step to adopt the standards is very high. So I would say, well, not to reach out, for companies to adopt a full-blown digital twin model, but to start maybe, we call it a trusted label. It's a good entry point, but you have to make the entry barrier very low. So people, I want to engage into digital interface. I need to know the API. I want to have some edge intelligence. I want to create a cloud space, or I want to apply AI. And then you have to channel those companies slowly towards what we call the MIMS. What are the key essentials I should start with? Maybe a small package. And that's training exercise, it's stepwise exercise. So I like the idea of label, but not for the sake of labeling, but for the sake of, what is my problem space? What do I have to solve? What problems do I have to solve? And how could I get the minimal, things what I have to do in my homework? So have you thought about, interfering with smaller companies, SMEs, in order to embrace this idea of a trusted label?
I would say that's exactly the point, that we need to synchronize the creation of the label with this roadmap. And let's have a good roadmap where we can actually increase and have the participation of the SMEs, things like that. And then the trust label actually will evolve, because we make it low, but then as we learn, we make it stronger.
Exactly. So I think it will be a sort of the closed loop in time. Like, it's never-ending story. Like, you start with a certain level, but then in time you need to simply evolve. Let's see how it will go. But within BDVA, within IoTI, there's let's say, strong SMEs communities, so we can talk to them, right? Well, this will not be done completely without any, I would say, feedback. But I mean,
yeah, well, we should talk to them. Actually, what we are also seeing in the data spaces support center and data spaces is the adoption is key. And of course, when we talk about the standards adoption, we think of the large industry. For them it's easier, but again, we have a lot of SME members, and for them it's not so easy. So as soon as we agree on something here, I think IoT or BDVA, we should bring also this discussion to our members. And again, let them know this is happening, and also collect the requirements for this to happen, absolutely. So we should do that. Yeah.
This is also related to this platform orientation, where, for instance, for smart cities, you have the MIM, and this is really the approach I think can make it happen, because then what we publish, what we make visible to the SME is something simple, because we have solved, or we try to solve the things below. Okay.
Let's now have two last questions, because we have a couple of minutes. So please go ahead.
Good morning, citizens. Angelos Harlaftis, Epafos Advisors. We represent Open Codex community, a strictly European and Mediterranean community, on the open source mainly. And we have two questions. One is, can you explain, a summarized way, your way of technically explaining what is level, label, and rating? Seems interesting as parameters. And second, on your standards communication with all the bodies, I didn't see the NISA organization, which already we are making a lot of certificates on the trust field over there. I don't see that.
So
at the IoT, we are working also at the Eurocontrol.
Yeah.
It's a big sector, okay?
Yeah, exactly. So first of all, we need to embrace all the sectors. In NISA, I'm the representative of SC27 to SCCG, which is Stakeholder Cybersecurity Certification Group. So we will work with them. We are not going to not have them on board, okay? And the last thing about ratings, label, and things like that, yes, I did this on purpose, because to show that the terms are confusing and the purpose are confusing, and we need to agree, okay? But I would rather like to take what Rolf said, that actually the purpose is to help, okay? And to help according to a roadmap where we have simple things, we give access to people, and we say, please do that, okay? And to me, if we are able to do this and not having just invented the trust label just for the sake of having it, okay? So yes, and all those terms, labels, levels, ratings, they are in the standards, okay? So we need to discuss and agree what they mean, okay? So yeah, that's the point. This is an issue we need to solve. Christian.
I have a comment from automation point of view once again. Our understanding of the administration shell or the digital twin is not for control. This is for additional application, for added value. I don't think that a power plant, maybe, let me say, to control this assembly line will be done by a digital twin. This is automation, and this is online. But there's in parallel the following activity. We want to virtualize automation. So maybe in future we have only sensors and actuators and all others virtualized. But the concepts behind the real-time execution as a control logic, this is 50, 70, 60 years, all technology, and this will be inside. But the technology, how to execute all this will be different. But from my point of view, the digital twin has added value, not the control, the basic control of it.
So maybe a digital twin-oriented label. Wow.
Let's go
Yes,
to Omar
yes.
for the last comment.
Yes. Well, I noticed a paper a few days ago from Chinese engineers that they argue that they managed to utilize existing D-Wave quantum computer, the annealing computer, to break RSA with the existing system and AES. Symmetric cryptography. What does it mean? It means if this is validated, we are in trouble, really trouble, and especially the edge computing and IoT systems. So I'm asking you if during the roadmap and the strategy and the gaps you identify, if you consider this risk in how do you intend to address it, and especially if you consider not to standardize all the APIs and the interfaces, because standardizing means that we put it in the public. So maybe keeping something not standardized, keeping secret, or in order to address such kind of risks. Thanks.
So I can answer because in the roadmap, everyone say that ultimately the requirement is continuous adaptation. So you need to cope with that. If we don't cope with that, it is catastrophic. So from the start, we design, and digital twin will help actually, okay, to have the continuous adaptation, okay? And this is the ultimate goal, to make sure that we take into account not only this, but other aspects of evolution, because we have a new characteristic, new issues, new societal issues that we need to take into account. Okay? And the way we work, us and the system we build, must be continuously improvable. Okay, this is maturity thinking, actually, ISO 9001. But we need to do it. Okay.
So thanks a lot. Thanks, Antonio. Thanks, Daniel. Thank you also for the questions. I think we have quite lively discussion, and I think we can continue over the lunch. So thank you very much.
Can you please stay before lunch? Like, just come here if you haven't signed the attendance letter.
Before we go for lunch, which I believe is downstairs. So where you took your accreditation, you go past the desk and on the left. Just if I could go through the agenda for the afternoon, you know what you're walking back into. So first of all, in the afternoon, we're going to be bringing much more of this cross-sectoral and cross-domain environment and focus in, particularly around the industry environment, and with a clear emphasis on the energy piece. It's not. Oh, it is working. Okay. So we'll be kicking off with Rolf Schneider from the IoT unit. We'll be giving the introduction to the whole afternoon session. Then we'll be having from Henrik, we'll be having an overview of the application of MIMS within the flexibility side. Then I wish I had the agenda in front of me. We'll be talking about S2 standards, approach for the demand side flexibility. And we'll be hearing from Weissman on the sector coupling for heat pumps before going into the panel led by Silvana, which will be looking at the industrial evidence for common standards. Sorry, not Silvana, by Ruth, for the industrial standards on flexibility of energy assets. And then afterwards, we'll be hearing from Dave Raggett from W3C, who'll be talking about the cross-sectoral standardization mechanisms that they have been working on and have in place. We'll be hearing from Robert, who will be talking about the eBus as an emerging standard, but also taking on a de facto and de jure approach within that. And looking then behind the API standards for behind the flexible mobility, which I think is Philip, if I remember correctly, or may not. And then we'll be having the panel led by Silvana. And before finishing with the fireside chat with Thomas Hahn, from Siemens and Tanya. So lots in the afternoon, lots more discussions, but talking, and that you've brought up power plants, we'll be talking about energy, we're talking flexibility, we're talking about how we get that intersection between the vertical and the horizontal environments. And wish you all a good lunch. You have 50 minutes, so back here at 1 and nice and early for the Northern Europeans. Nice and timely for Northern Europeans for lunch. very early for the Southern Europeans for this lunch. So I hope you have enough hunger for it. So it's just coffee break for us in the South. But enjoy, okay?